Good morning. It's Sunday, June 2nd. And the other day, on Thursday, Donald Trump was convicted of 34 counts of criminal activity. Now, the judge has set a sentencing date for Donald Trump for July 11th. And at that point, he could be sentenced to as much as 4 years behind bars or probation. Now, that fact won't stop him from running for president, because there's no legal prohibition on felons running for president. There's no constitutional provision that would stop him from serving as president from a prison cell even. But that would trigger a major crisis, I think, and the courts would probably have to resolve that issue. And I think if he's locked up for 4 years, that would be a hell of a way to serve as president. Now, his ability to vote might be restricted, and that depends on whether he's sentenced to prison or not. Because in Florida, where he's registered to vote, they require that felons convicted there must complete their full sentence, including parole or probation, before reaching voting rights. But when those who live in Florida are convicted in another state, Florida defers to the laws of that state. And New York will not let felons vote while they are in prison. But once they're released from prison, they can vote. But I don't really think that Donald cares whether he can vote or not. The question is whether or not he can run for president. And I think even though the law does not prevent him from running for president, running for president from a jail cell would be a very difficult task. For that, he has the opportunity to appeal, which he certainly will do. But appealing is not an easy thing to do, because you have to have a pre-sentencing report. And that report makes recommendations based upon the defendant's criminal record. But Donald has no criminal record. This is the first time that he had been convicted of any kind of crime. But he may have to talk to a psychologist or a social worker who works for the probation department, and they are sure want to talk to him. But I don't think he wants to talk to them, I'm sure of that. But he's got to try and make a good impression, because he better do what they say. And based upon what he tells the psychologist or the social worker, they will make a recommendation on whether he deserves lighter punishment. So Donald is caught in the web of being a criminal and the actions that are required of him. And you know, in his personality, he has to be the boss. So if he's now required to seek the help of some social worker or some psychologist or some other person, that may be very difficult for him to do. But he's got to figure out a way to do that if he thinks he deserves a lighter sentence or lighter punishment. So all of those pre-sentencing activities end up being a report. And that report specifies whether the defendant is in a counseling program or has a steady job. Now, of course, Donald Trump's steady job right now was running for the presidency. And the other thing is, even if they allow him to go free, he will probably be required to report on a regular basis to a probation officer. And they could put rules on whether or not he can be traveling anywhere. They might confine him to Florida or New York or whatever, and not allow him to travel. So how could a man run for president under those conditions? He could be free free, but not really free. Now, Trump was convicted of 34 Class E felonies. That's the New York State's lowest level. But each of those counts carries a penalty of up to 4 years, and that could be probation or home confinement or jail. And the judge has to consider whether he should give them individual sentences or one collapsed sentence of maybe just 4 years for everything. And Justice Merchant considers white-collar crime very serious. So there's a good chance that Trump will be punished in some way, shape, or form, but he probably won't be victimized to the point of more than a 4-year conviction. But Trump has 3 other cases hanging over his head, and if he is convicted in any of those cases, his life's more complicated. And interestingly, in 2020 election. And then there's the state case in Georgia that concerns election interference. You remember him getting on the telephone call, trying to talk to the representative in the state of Georgia, asking for 11,382 votes so that he could win the state of Georgia. Now, Trump's lawyers can file a notice of appeal after sentencing, and that's on July 11th at 10 a.m. And the judge could postpone the punishment during an appeal, and that appeal series could delay punishment beyond election day. Now, if he wins the election, 2 cases might disappear because they're federal. But the case in Georgia is a state case, and Trump would have no power as president to pardon himself from a verdict in that particular case. So this is an interesting time in this country, and I think we have to pay attention to all of these legal proceedings. And let us hope that justice is done. And let us hope that Donald doesn't wiggle out of this mess that he has created. So I leave you with that this morning. A very confusing legal situation. Have a great day. Bye.